Almighty God, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. So welcome. If you were expecting Father Bob, I am clearly not Father Bob, but I am glad to be here with you today. I'm Ben Maddison. I'm the priest in Winona. And I get the sense that Father Bob warned you that we were swapping churches. So I'll tell you the same thing I told my congregation. Right? Feel free to boo. Okay? If it's terrible, let me know. But seriously, I'm glad to be here with you today. And I'm glad that we have this opportunity to sort of see other people's parishes and visit. And, you get to hear from someone different this week. So I want to start by asking you, how do you respond when your expectations, right, meet reality? Or to put it another way, how do you respond when the expectations that you've set just fail miserably? There's a great show on Netflix. I want to assume that everyone knows what Netflix is, but it's an online streaming service for movies and television. Yes, where you've heard of Netflix, I assume? Yes, okay, good. There's a show on there called Nailed It. And it operates very much like any sort of cooking show on the television. I assume we've all watched these shows, yes? Yes, okay. Right? You always watch it when you're the most hungry and it's like 11 o'clock at night and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? Right? But the premise is very familiar. You take home bakers, you put them in a fully stocked kitchen with all the gadgets and all of the food and everything that they could, do to prepare these meals. They pick a recipe off of Pinterest, right, which are sort of known for their aesthetic value and how beautiful they are. And then they say, go and do likewise, right? Go make these desserts. But there's a catch, right? If you've watched the Food Network, you know that if you're given all of these tools, you can work magic in the kitchen, right? Like, I love the show Chopped, because they give you like random items, and they still make these like aioli infused like things, although you never make ice cream, right? That's the lesson you learn. But Nailed It has another premise to it as well, right? It's not just that they're home bakers, but they pick terrible home bakers. People who are known for being like particularly bad in the kitchen, right? In one episode, a guy uses salt instead of sugar, right? He goes to the rack, he sees it, he thinks it's sugar, and it's not, right? So they put these terrible cooks in this fully stocked kitchen, and the recipes are way too hard. So then at the end, when they present it, right, the expectation of what it's going to look like, our expectations are like dashed into the ground. Because we think it's going to be these beautiful creations, when really it looks like, a 4-year-old did it. And it plays on this assumption, right? It plays on our expectations and how they meet with reality. And today, in today's gospel, we see this playing out in the story of Mary, Martha, and Jesus. Right? Jesus is walking around with his friends. They're headed to Jerusalem, and he comes to Bethany, where Mary and Martha live, and they invite him to their home. Now, anyone who's had to prepare for guests, right? Good guests or bad guests, right? Maybe your in-laws, that always makes you a little anxious, right? Knows the expectation that it takes when you're hosting people. You have to bring out all of the best things. You have to bring out all of the nice china comes out that you only use like twice a year and you can't put in the dishwasher. The best Triscuits come out. The quality cheese from Sam's Club, right? Maybe you bring out the $10 bottle of wine as opposed to, right, the box that you keep in the fridge, right? We bring out our best for guests. And that's the scene that we catch them in. They're preparing for Jesus. They're ready. And Jesus comes in and he begins to teach and to spend time with them. But Martha, distracted by her many tasks, is still trying to get things ready. She still has this expectation that things need to be perfect for Jesus. Right? The baseboards need to be dusted. This is like a given when you have guests, right? The bathroom needs to be clean. All of these things still need to be done. And what we see is Mary's expectation coming smack dab to the reality of what's actually going on. And she looks at Jesus and she says, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." Now, I don't know about you, but I can certainly appreciate where Martha is coming from. There's nothing worse than trying to get ready, trying to prepare, and you look and the other person who you're supposed to be doing this with is not doing their part, right? They're not pulling their weight. But part of Martha's response is a response to expectation, broadly speaking, right? So in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a lot of these sayings to help you in your recovery. And one of their sayings, one of my favorite ones, is that expectations are premeditated resentments. Right? Whenever we have these expectations, whenever we set the bar high, whatever we think is going to happen for us or for other people, those expectations will also come smack dab into the reality that they don't go where we think they're going to go. And Martha is left having these high hopes, looking at the Lord and saying, "Isn't this what I was supposed to be doing? Make my sister help me." Oftentimes, this text gets used as an object lesson, right? How many times have you heard that? Martha cares about things, but Mary cares about people. Martha is getting things ready, but she's trying to be hospitable, and Mary is being the actual host, right? Spending time with the guest. And that sermon goes something along the lines of, don't be Martha, do be Mary, go and do likewise. Right? But if you talk to clergy, and I get to talk to them occasionally, they'll say things like, I really don't like this reading because we could all use a few more Marthas, couldn't we? Right? We need help cleaning up the church and making sure the lawn's cut and doing all the things. And there's something in us that grouses about this reading. Right? We can sort of feel the unfairness in our bones because we know what it means to have high expectations, right? Because what Martha is going to Jesus for is she wants him to do three things by my estimation, right? The first thing she wants him to do is she wants him to acknowledge that the work that she's doing and the intentions that she has are worth something, right? This is why she's so frustrated in the first place. She's doing what she's supposed to be doing, and she wants Jesus to acknowledge that. Right? The second thing she's doing is she wants Jesus to then place those expectations on her sister as well. Right? It's not enough that I'm doing these things and they're not happening. I need you to enlist the help of my sister to help with this as well. And the very last thing that Martha is looking for, right? She's looking for a pat on the back. She wants Jesus to tell her that she's doing the right thing. Right? That these expectations are worth something. That the work and the effort and the frustration and the resentments, they mean something. But what does Jesus say to Martha? He says, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing." Martha wants Jesus to intervene. She wants him to acknowledge the work that she's doing. But for Martha, and I think for us, the way we think about expectation, right? The way we think about the things that we do, it actually belies a deeper understanding of how we think the world works, right? What's going on in our interior lives. I think we'd all like to say that the way we clean the house and the way we host guests and the way we talk to our siblings and friends, maybe that's not the best estimation of what's going on at a spiritual level. But the way that Martha responds to expectation says something about what she thinks about the world. Right? The fact that she is doing says something about what she thinks is going on. What she asks the Lord for belies the truth that is in her. Right? Because at the bottom of our expectations, right, whenever we hold them up and think that this is the way they're going to be, and we hold them outside of the reality in which we live, we find that what we're actually trying to do is we're trying to save ourselves, right? We're trying to self-justify. That what Martha wants is for Jesus to acknowledge the work that she's doing, right? And that this is what we do when we try to meet these expectations. We try to save ourselves from judgment. We try to save ourselves from embarrassment. We try to save ourselves from humiliation. right? Martha's just trying to make and provide the best house for Jesus to visit. But when we pull back that onion a little more, right, when we get to what's really at the heart of all that work, what we find is that we try to save ourselves. Right now, you might be saying, that's reading a lot into cleaning up the house, Ben. Right? That's, come on. Nobody's really trying to save themselves by keeping a house clean. So let me give you another example that might work a little better. Are you familiar with fad diets? Right? We've all probably done one every once in a while, right? Maybe it was a juice cleanse or the pineapple, right? Not pineapple. Grapefruit. Thank you. Grapefruit diet, right? That miserable nightmare of starvation. Let's call it what it is, right? Or any other sort of system. South Beach, Atkins, all of these things, right? If you look at how we look at our expectations about these things, right? About fad diets, about gym memberships, about the way we raise our kids or send them to school, the way that we work in our workplaces, right? All of these things that have all of these expectations. What we think is that in doing them, they'll make us fitter and happier and more productive. But what we're really saying is we're trying to save ourselves. We were driving here this morning and we saw two people jogging out on I'm not sure which road it was, but it's it's one of the roads to get here. It wasn't Kings Highway. And I looked at Ashley and I said, whenever I see people jogging outside, especially in heat like this, I just want to roll down my window and shout, "You're gonna die," right? We're all going to die. You can't outrun the Grim Reaper, right? You can do whatever you want. You can look great, but the expectation, right, is going to come smack dab into the reality. Right? You're going to have your Martha moment. And let's thank God that Martha had her moment at home and not while she's running out in this heat. Because the truth is, our ontological end, right, the way that the things are going is that we come to this intersection in our lives, right? We find a place where expectation and reality clash. And that's the hardest part of this reading. Right? It's the hardest part of Mary and Martha. It's why the story makes us uncomfortable. Because we're all going to end up in that situation eventually. Where we stand before the Lord and say, "Look at the work that I'm doing. Isn't this what you want me to do?" But instead, Jesus replies, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing." And in that one thing, right, in that turn of what Jesus is doing, that is where we find the good news of today's gospel. Because Jesus has come to offer that one thing to Martha and Mary. Right? As much as we'd like to make this about what Mary is doing and what Martha is doing, the truth is that it doesn't really matter. Right? It doesn't matter what their actions are or what their intentions are. Right? What matters is Jesus came to them and has something to offer them. Right? You have need of only one thing, Jesus tells them. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says that he comes to not abolish the law, but to fulfill it. Right? That the expectations that we have, he's not coming to get rid of all of them, right? Because at their heart, they're good things, right? We should be hospitable to guests. We should do all these things. But he comes to fulfill it, right? He comes to release the pressure from it, right? And when he's hanging on the cross, one of his final words is, "It's finished," right? The expectation and demands and all of these things, they're done, right? And they're done by Christ for us. Martha, Martha, you're distracted by your many tasks, by your many things. But there's need of only one thing. When Jesus comes to visit the sisters, in the same way that when Jesus comes to visit us, he's not expecting a clean house, right? He's not running his finger along the windowsill to check for dust. He's not checking the corners for Irish lace or the baseboards for the collected hair from the morning routine, right? In fact, the Lord expects that those things are going to be there. Right? When Jesus comes to us, all he asks is, can we receive? So today, as we remember that expectations are premeditated resentments, as we go into a world where we know that our reality is going to come smack dab into the face of the things that we're expecting and remind us that it's not worth it, remember what Jesus says to Martha. Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. And then he sort of leans over and says, and that's me. Amen.
Amen.